Dante's? Hello, Dante. How's it going with the bumpy? Hello there, you little demons. Jules here for WhatCulture.com, back again with another episode of the awesomely named and awfully hosted Choose Your Own Adventure, the weekly medieval-themed format where I, the crown Jules of WhatCulture.com, take a list chosen by you. Yes, you, the person who is, you know what, I'm just going to say it out here, and I think it's a very controversial statement here. You know what, it might get me banned off all platforms, but you know what? Big up to the nans. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, nans are great. And unfortunately, mine isn't very well at the moment. So I just want to take this opportunity to say big up to all the nans, the grannies, the nanas, what are they called in Welsh? I know that Bampy is what you call grandad. Nansy? Nampy? I don't know what it is. Whatever you call your grandma, just give us some love. And the granddads as well. Let's chuck them into the pile as well. For nothing else other than just to share the love. Yes, you get to decide what list I dole out to you each and every week. And this week we have none other to thank than EJ Wyatt for their amazing and quite comical suggestion of video games that kind of should have just been an email. Now, there probably isn't a person among us who hasn't played at least one video game and then thought to themselves, well, that was definitely a game. I mean, for one of many, many reasons, a game might leave you just feeling utter indifference. Maybe the experience just failed to move you in any way or stoke any strong feelings. It just left you feeling, it was a game that existed, and you probably stopped thinking about it the moment that you switched it off. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. 8 video games that basically could have been an email. Devil May Cry 2. Now, impressively, even more polarising than 2013's Devil May Cry reboot, Devil May Cry 2 is one of the most bafflingly undercooked sequels, and say it with me, kids. Actually, I can't be bothered. It's just not filling me with any joy here. It's a bewilderingly naff rush job that Capcom just plodded out less than 18 months after the acclaimed original. It put basically every foot wrong. The combat was intensely casualised to the point of tedium. Dante's edgy personality was cleaved away in favour of generic stoicism, and the repetitive level design was an absolute snoozer throughout. Combine all of this with a brief 5-hour playtime and how blatantly the storytelling was nothing but filler, and it's little surprise that even ride or die DMC fans often recommend newcomers to just kind of skip this one and instead jump into the brilliant third game instead. Devil May Cry 2 did the one thing that nobody expected. It made a character action franchise boring. Super Meat Boy forever. Now, it's fair to say that by 2020, fans of the all-timer platformer Super Meat Boy were beyond jonesing for a sequel. But man, what a weird letdown it ended up being. The chief complaint about Super Meat Boy Forever is that Team Meat made it an auto-runner, meaning that players no longer had control of Meat Boy's movements beyond, well, jumping and moving that way. Further polarising was the decision to have the levels be procedurally generated depending on the player's skill level. A nice idea on paper, but it ensured that the sequel lacked the tightness and exactitude of its predecessor. Ultimately, Super Meat Boy Forever came and went in a flash, because while it's actually a rather good example of an auto-runner, it's consequently a terrible Super Meat Boy game. And not exactly what anyone who loved the original wanted for a sequel. Team Meat originally designed the game as a mobile-only spin-off before then pivoting it into a direct sequel, and boy, does it show. The fact that very few people talk about this game today, except to dunk on it, of course, in lists like this, kinda says it all. But speaking of big meaty things here, have you actually considered subscribing to What Culture Gaming? I mean, if you enjoyed this type of content, then why not just click that button and get that notification bell rung as well, because then you'll be able to stay up to date with all of our daily gaming content goodness, my friend. And that's a spicy meatball right there. But now on to something that's a little less spicy meatball and more rotten hunk of meat, because talking about Resident Evil 3 Remake. Now, after the enormous success of Capcom's Resident Evil 2 remake, fans naturally expected the same level of care and attention for the remake of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. In fact, if I remember correctly, I think that Sai might be a slight fan of Resident Evil in general. Maybe I've got that confused though. There hasn't been any sort of indication that she's actually into that franchise. Maybe I'm just going out on a whim here. However, I will throw the camera to her right now to say whether she does enjoy the Resident Evil franchise and what she thought of Resident Evil 3. But here's the caveat, by the way, Sai. You have 5 words to do so. Enjoy. Or you could do it in a haiku. I'll accept either.
Not a great remake, underrated action game? Carlos is hot. Damn.
I couldn't have said it better myself. But I'll try, because I have a script in front of me. Now, Resident Evil 3 offered up solid visuals, don't get me wrong, and it was pretty cool, roller coaster style thrills, but it was also very superficial and clearly kicked out for a quick buck. For one, large sections of the original game are missing entirely. The branching choices are gone. Boss encounters and puzzles have been streamlined, whatever that means, and Nemesis himself has a far more subdued presence overall. I loved it when he was big bin bag man. I thought that was great, and then it was like, what are you, mutant dog right now? What's this dog doing over here? Hey, somebody let the dogs out. And then I was just like, oh, the game's over. Cool. Cool. Sick. Resident Evil 2's remake was a perfect example of how to reinterpret a classic for a new generation while not being 100% faithful. But the new Resident Evil 3 just felt like Capcom really couldn't be bothered to do it full justice. And it's a shame. There are great elements in this game. It's just, we needed longer and more fleshed out experiences and a damn sight more Nemesis. I shouldn't even have to say that. It's in the fucking title. Star Fox Zero. Now, considering that Star Fox Zero was the first mainline Star Fox game in a full decade, fans quite understandably expected it to take full advantage of the Wii U's hardware. The Wii U's hardware. Sorry, I know that it sounds like a silly thing to say. It's not exactly the most powerful thing in the world. I'm pretty sure that most calculators nowadays can outperform it. But still, people expected a great deal. What people didn't expect was Nintendo to stubbornly shoehorn motion controls into this game, and it became a massive sticking point with critics and players alike on launch. Being forced to use motion controls, which were just uncomfortable and unintuitive, meant that the game felt like a chore to play from minute one. Beyond that, the story was a dull retread of earlier Star Fox games, ensuring that this felt like a spectacularly unenthusiastic, half-hearted attempt to bring the IP back to the mainstream. Here's the thing, if you've got a long dormant franchise like this, right, and you want to bring it back in to the public viewpoint, just try. The vocal complaints about the controls alone were seemingly enough to sink Star Fox Zero commercially, as it ultimately ended up selling less than 500,000 copies, albeit this was also a result of the Wii U's pretty stagnant sales at the time. The basic act of playing this game is such an awkward pain in the arse that opening an email instead is genuinely preferable. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Now, the Call of Duty franchise has pretty consistently delivered the meat and potatoes goods. It's like, all right, Goovner, how's it going? You want some slop? Here's some slop. Enjoy your slop. Welcome to the slop factory. Imagine if all of the adverts for Call of Duty going forward were just that. They were just like straight up about it. Hey, gamers, have you enjoyed last year's slop? Well, here's more. Have you enjoyed being shot from nowhere and not understanding where you've been shot from and having a lifespan of about 15 seconds? Slop. Sloppy done. Call of Duty Black Slops. Anyway, back on track. 2023's Modern Warfare 3 was just a tepid stew. It just missed so much of the good stuff. Now, it's little secret that the game was originally developed by Sledgehammer Games as a DLC for Modern Warfare 2 before Activision changed it into a full-fat retail release mid-production, and boy, does it show, because it likely explains both why Modern Warfare 3 released with a cobbled-together excuse for a campaign, and the multiplayer suite launched with no brand new maps at all. Just remastered ones from 2009's Modern Warfare 2. Though the multiplayer at least delivered a basically fun time, it was painfully, embarrassingly clear that this product was never intended to plug the gap in the franchise's annual pipeline. Activision made it happen because they just knew it would sell anyway, even if the negativity surrounding the release is likely what prompted it to sell less than Modern Warfare 2. All in all, it's a rare Call of Duty game that even some loyal fans decided to skip because it showed so little basic respect for them and their wallets. The Order 1886. Now, to be completely fair to Ready at Dawn's alt history steampunk action-adventure game, The Order 1886, it would have made for a really pretty email. It would have had all of the sort of clip art that you could have forcefully put into that. You would have opened it and just been like, wow, that's a nice email. Gee whiz. Big Pidge, come and have a look at this email. Look at, wow, just wee. Zoom. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting Batman big expletives coming up here. Bazoong. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have called you out of that meeting. That was actually, wasn't very respectful of your time. I apologise. He's got a new corporate job. Doesn't pay the bills, you know. He's got to keep us with a roof over our heads, you know what I'm saying? Now, the marketing for the order focused on its undeniably jaw-dropping visual presentation, with Sony hyping it up as one of their big AAA IPs, the potential of which, well, really spoke for itself. But the rug was firmly pulled once the game launched, and critics and players alike expressed their thunderous indifference. Yeah, it was a game that, despite its technical innovations, was otherwise just a bog-standard third-person shooter with nothing even remotely mechanically interesting to offer. Even worse than that, though, neither the characters nor the story made much of a dent, wholly unaided by its brutally short 5-hour length, ensuring that players were afforded little time to immerse themselves in this game's superficially rich world before it was all over. Though some scattered enthusiasm for the order definitely remains, it evaporated from mainstream gaming culture in the blink of an eye, likely because it felt less like the start of a franchise and more like a proof of concept? Shenmue III. Now, fans were overjoyed when Shenmue III. I'm trying to emulate that guy who goes, eats all the peppers around on TikTok and Instagram, where he's there like, it's some chili oil. I'm gonna get these peppers in the chili oil. If you've not seen it, it's just some old dude who just goes around eating really hot peppers and showing no, reaction whatsoever. It blows my mind that somebody's just there like, oh, I'm gonna take this habanero and dunk it in some chili oil, and then just do that. And he does that all the time. It's funny what soothes the brain on the reels, isn't it? And that's mine. That's me sharing, by the way. Please share your weird things, not the super weird stuff, let's keep that to ourselves. Share the slightly alt things that you watch on Reels. I just want to know. If, but give me the description, don't link me. Just give me the description. Again, the 5-word challenge that I gave to Sai earlier, give me that. I want to see that in the comment section below. Your weird reel pulls, 5 words. Chili oil! So yeah, as I was saying, fans were overjoyed when Shenmue was finally confirmed at E3 2015, but when the long-awaited sequel released in 2019, almost a full 20 years after the second game, it was pretty tough to mask the disappointment. I mean, sure, there were those diehards that simply were just happy to see it return, in any form, but if we're being honest with ourselves, Shenmue III, I'm not going to do it all the time, is one of the most audacious squanderings of a belated sequel in gaming history. Rather than appreciate Shenmue III's existence was basically miraculous and just press on with progressing Ryo's quest to avenge his murdered father, creator Yu Suzuki decided to make the threequel a glorified filler entry where almost nothing of consequence happened. One could forgive, perhaps maybe even embrace the stiff combat and clunky controls if Shenmue III had any story momentum whatsoever, but here, the villain Lan Di doesn't appear until the final minutes of the game before he effortlessly beats you to a pulp in a brief boss fight and then goes on his separate path again. You sat there just going, what? I waited 20 years to have my ass kicked? I don't understand you, Yu Suzuki. You're sitting there with the big drawing board of ideas here. You've probably written down a billion things to do and waste your time with little gacha-like games and arcade experiences, and you've never thought once to just go, probably should move the plot along. Don't worry, I'll come back to it in another 20 years. There's a good chance that I'll be dead by then. And not be able to say, chili oil, and also Shenmue 4. So yeah, long story short, would have actually rather this be an email because the email would have just been the header text and no content whatsoever with a picture of Lan Di just flipping you off. And I would have probably appreciated that just as much. And so we close the show on Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2. Now, The Force Unleashed had its pretty rough edges, but it nevertheless remains one of the most entertaining and memorable Star Wars games, and it sold enough that a sequel was quickly put into production. But Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2 is a depressingly blatant cash grab that largely just rehashes the original that makes most of everything worse? Yeah. With a wafer-thin story, woefully repetitive level design, clunky combat, and a mere 4-hour playtime, this thing absolutely dripped with cynicism from every pore, feeling like it was just half-baked DLC than a full-fat retail product. Following the game's release, it unsurprisingly emerged that the production was a nightmare, with LucasArts insisting that it be completed in just 2 years, half the time the team spent making the original Force Unleashed. Due to this, writer Hayden Blackman only had 3 weeks to pen the game's script, which, when combined with leadership changes at LucasArts, resulted in the project's scope and style being pulled in different directions throughout. That cannot have been a fun time. Despite the first game being a massive commercial hit, this limp sequel failed to move the needle at all, effectively killing the franchise shortly before Disney bought Lucasfilm. What a depressing end to such a promising franchise. Oh, well, here's hoping that maybe Yu Suzuki jumps on board and in 20 years we can. Yu Suzuki, if I ever meet you in real life, mate, you're going to have a lot to answer for. And mainly just I'll be really nice to you and polite because I don't carry that beef forward. It's just a video game. But don't do it again. And there we go, my friends. Those were 8 video games that kind of probably should have just been an email. Let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below, and also put your suggestions for next week's episode down there as well. If you want to chat to me on the social medias in the meantime, you can do so where I'm at RetroJ on both Blue Sky and Instagram, and you can follow my lovely and ever-patient editor site over on her social medias over here. But before I go, my friend, I just want to say one thing. Even though we spoke today about video games that probably should have been an email, why don't we pen ourselves a nice little positive thought right now and send that to the inbox of the heart. That kind of actually worked. Yeah, fair enough. I surprise myself sometimes with these. Let's just start each and every day by being kind to ourselves, by reminding ourselves that we deserve love, happiness, and success, because we do. We're all human beings. We deserve the bloody best. So treat yourself with that love. And trust me, it'll make things a lot easier if you do. There's enough hatred out there, so let's not start it in our own home. You know what I'm saying? So big love to you, you massive ledge, all right? And by the way, if you want to check out any other What Culture Gaming stuff, you can check out a video. Okay, let's think about this. Where am I going to be positioned on the screen? So that must mean that if everything's reversed, so here or here? Does that work? You can check out. If not, so I'll just flip the image right now. Hopefully not upside down, because otherwise that'd be very confusing, unless they've... No, whatever. So it's over here. Go check out some more content from What Culture Gaming. I'll speak to you soon. Bye!